in Georgia. He's been up to North Carolina and to Tennessee. And now we're back in this Florida area, but very close to Alabama, Georgia.
So it's he moves around between
does.
4 or 5 states, it seems, and which I guess from his point of view is smart. But he always goes back to the national forest nearest him. He loves being in the woods.
Searchers poured around the wooded area where her Camry was left, but they couldn't find Cheryl at all. It was on December 15th that hunters in the forest in an area called Bloxham Cutoff Road noticed buzzards.
Well, that's not good.
Upon closer inspection, the birds were flying over and then stopping, landing down, like picking at the body of a female.
I would hate to discover that.
The head and hands were missing from the body.
Who could? Oh my God.
Not only are you stumbling upon this
a body,
dead body, which has been out in the elements for some days.
So yeah, nature's taking its course.
Point that you've got buzzards
in the Florida heat
picking at this body.
Oh my God.
That's pretty fucking horrific, right? But then it ain't got no head or hands.
Well, we've said it before. You know, people to cut parts off of other humans that's a whole nother level.
Yeah,
crazy.
Dismemberment is like next level.
It is.
Psychopath.
It definitely is.
Muscle samples had to be used to identify the body because it was so decomposed.
So they couldn't even get proper DNA? They had to dig on down and get muscle tissue?
The autopsy revealed the dismemberment had been done with a sharp instrument post-mortem.
Okay.
Now remember, we were talking about a bayonet?
Yeah.
Punctures? I don't know if that sharp instrument could be this bayonet, but possibly.
Okay.
It was not until January 9th, 2008 that investigators recovered charred bone fragments, believing to be her head and hands in a fire pit at Joe Thomas campsite. It was like a campground, which was about 7 miles from where her body, like the torso and legs, were discovered.
Okay, so whomever, is that right? Is that proper English?
Sure.
Whoever did this took the hands and head and took it somewhere else and tried to destroy it.
Yes. In a fire pit.
Okay.
At a blasted campground.
Well, hey, what you guys over there grilling? Because it sure does smell different.
Well, it's just, I mean, not that we often discuss a lot of like super intelligent, like perfect types of criminals who can get away with murder. Clearly they don't. We're talking about them for the most part.
Right.
But it's like, if you are preying on people in the national forest, this is your shtick, this is your gimmick, you're just sort of telling on yourself by like burning this stuff in a fire pit in a campground near the body. Because then it's like, well, automatically investigators are going to be thinking that this is someone who's an outdoors enthusiast.
Well, at least they know they camped that time.
Traveling in campgrounds. And so there's this other murder. It just seems to me it would be an easy way to connect dots. That if you were a really smart criminal, you would try to not do that. Make it so easy.
Well, I guess, a lot of times these people think they're being smart and cunning. And, I'm curious how they found the bones, in that little fire pit. If they're that good of investigators, if they threw their net that wide, or if possibly another camper, heard of the ruckus down the road, if you will, knew that they found a body and someone else used the pit and then, seen what they thought was bones.
I'm not exactly sure. I did not find information about how exactly they discovered these bones, but I can tell you that no DNA could be recovered from the remains.
Okay. Because
they were so badly charred and burned. But forensic experts said it was belonging to a small adult. Okay,
so they have a good idea these bones, they're human. They did belong to a small adult.
Yes.
And so the crazy-ass killer person kind of achieved their goal to a degree.
To a degree.
Should have gathered them bone scraps up, though.
Witnesses would place Hilton in the area at the time of Dunlap's disappearance. He was seen on LL Wallace. I started to say walrus. It's Wallace. Witnesses would place Hilton in the area at the time of Dunlap's disappearance. He was seen on LL Wallace. Why do I keep wanting to call this Walrus Road? It's LL Wallace Road. Oh my gosh.
One more time.
Okay.
You got it. You got this.
Well, no, I'm just going to keep this in. We're not editing this out because our listeners need to hear that I apparently want to call it LL Walrus Road by a man who Hilton had asked to jump him off. Apparently his white Chevy Astrovan had a dead battery.
Yeah, because he's probably a dumbass and left the lights on.
Probably. There was also a second individual who came forward later and said he had asked for help and they denied helping him.
Yeah, because he looks fucking evil and crazy.
Another woman saw Hilton rummaging through a white Toyota Camry on the side of the highway on December 1st. Others placed him near Bloxham Cutoff where Dunlap's body was dumped.
Oh, well, that's a lot of information there.
After Dunlap's murder, Hilton was on the road again, making his way into Georgia. We should talk for a moment about another body that was discovered. This has not been directly tied to Hilton, but the similarities, haunting.
Very much so.
Michael Scott Lois was a 27-year-old man from South Daytona. On December 6th of 2007, a fisherman found the torso and legs of a man in several plastic trash bags on the bank of the Tomoka River State Park, which is near Ormond Beach. His Firebird, and this is Michael Scott Lois's Firebird, was found in the parking lot of his apartment complex. The keys were in the ignition. Inside his car was unwashed laundry and 2 guitars.
Yes, it's a very strange story connected to him.
And I mentioned the unwashed laundry, the 2 guitars, because it was not like, it didn't have the appearance of this guy just like up and left.
Right.
He's got his dirty laundry in the car as if he's about to, go do his laundry. And he leaves behind his 2 guitars, which was very unusual because his friends described him as a very serious musician.
Yeah, so if he's taken off, if he can't carry anything else, he's taking his damn guitars with him.
He was also described by friends as having like this great sense of humor. He made everybody laugh. He was just like this really fun, cool guy to be around. He did impersonations, like impressions of famous people.
Yeah.
His best were of Michael Jackson and Marilyn Manson, which is kind of funny because you really couldn't get further away on a spectrum.
Right.
Of like doing those impressions. So I would enjoy seeing what that was like. He lived for music and loved his Firebird. It was like an older model Firebird. It was his baby.
Well, that sounds like a badass car.
Right. And so that was the other thing. If he was going to just like up and leave, he's not going to leave his fucking car behind.
He has 2 favorite things.
Exactly. Now, his head, hands were never found.
Well, I mean, that's strikingly similar to the state that the other body was found in.
Right.
Yeah.
And they did, after some time, they did identify these body parts as belonging to Michael Scott Lois. And although Hilton was never formally charged in Lois's death, again, eerily similar to Cheryl Dunlap. Now, this is an interesting kind of side note, I guess. There was a woman named Nelsie Tetley.
Yeah, this is where it gets weird with Mr. Scott or Mr. Lewis.
Right, and that's just such a strange name to me, Nelsie Tetley. That sounds like a character in like an English children's novel.
Nelsie Tetley.
Like the evil schoolmarm.
Oh, the schoolmarm.
Yeah.
Oh, meat and potatoes.
Well, Nelsie Tetley was charged with dismembering her boyfriend in Florida later. I believe it was in like 2017 or 16 or 17. I mean, it was like much later.
Right,
But she's considered a person of interest in the Lois case as well.
Yes, because she had connection. If I'm not mistaken, she was his girlfriend to some degree, or they had. Am I wrong on that?
They seem to have some sort of connection, relationship. I don't know exactly if it was like a romantic thing, if they would hang out or they hooked up,
right.
But they did know each other.
Right, and I think that was the though strikingly similar to was it Dunlap?
Yes.
Cheryl Dunlap's body being discovered in the same state. One of the biggest reasons that other people say no, we don't think it's Gary Hilton, is because of his connection to Miss Tetley. Because she literally did the same damn thing to someone else years later.
I also should mention, and I didn't keep track of the name, but pretty quickly after they found Cheryl Dunlap's body, there were other body parts discovered that belonged to another missing woman.
Really?
That were dumped up near the Alabama line.
Wow.
Right.
Wow.
And so some websites listed that as a possible Hilton connection.
Right.
But again, I didn't write the name down. But I'm just like, what the fuck, Florida? Why are there all these like heads and hands and torsos just floating around?
Well, you know what they say.
No, I don't.
Well, I mean, all the Florida Man articles, all the crazy shit. Of course, we know it's because of their, Freedom of Information Act, and a lot of the court records get out. And a lot of this crazy shit happens other places. You just know it happens in Florida because we get the information.
Between December 18th, 2007 and January 1st of 2008, Hilton was hanging out in Georgia, and he kidnaps a hiker named Meredith Emerson.
Now, this is a story that is pretty harrowing story.
And this is probably the most famous or well-known victims when it comes to Hilton.
It certainly is, because this is the one that definitely had the most articles and information and documentaries and things like that.
Emerson was a 24-year-old who grew up in Holly Springs, North Carolina, a suburb of Raleigh, and Longmont, Colorado. She was an honors graduate of the University of Georgia, where she studied French. She was living in Beaufort, Georgia, and decided to go for a hike on what is known as Blood Mountain. And this would have been New Year's Day, January 1st, 2008. Blood Mountain is a popular spot for hiking and is the highest elevation summit on the Appalachian Trail in Georgia. Meredith hit the trail with her dog, Ella. Both were experienced hikers. Meredith would often take Ella along on hikes. They were always outdoors together. It was supposed to be a day hike only, get out in nature, breathe some fresh air. Great way to kick off a new year.
Right.
A hiker named Seth Blankenship stumbled upon what looked like a fight scene on the trail. It was afternoon. The trail looked torn up. A water bottle was discarded along with sunglasses, a leather dog leash, a police baton, and a woman's hair clip. He had seen Meredith, a young woman, moments earlier with an older man. She had been carrying the leather leash, and the older man had the baton in his hand. Here this guy is, and he's seeing this scene on the trail where it appears there was some kind of scuffle. Those items are just laying there.
So, not long before, he saw the two literally had those items on their person.
Yes.
Okay, now that would freak me the hell out.
Seth is kind of evaluating the situation. I mean, you stumble upon this, you're like, what the fuck, right?
Yeah.
So he's just like looking around, trying to figure out what he should do, when another hiker named Bill Clausen approached. Well, the two discuss this scene, both agree that something is not right.
Right.
Bill helped gather the items, which he would take to a nearby store to turn in, almost like a lost and found type of thing. Meredith was spotted with this older man on the spur trail connecting to the Appalachian Trail, which was by the Byron Herbert Reese parking lot. And that's where her car is parked. Hilton targeted Emerson on the trail, deciding that she would be an easy victim.
Yeah, well, you see a woman.
Because she was a woman.
By herself, nothing but, has her dog, and I'm going to guess her dog wasn't very, a big, gnarly, mean-looking dog. Just, typical dog, regular looking.
Now, for a time, Hilton and Emerson were kind of hiking together along the trail, but he's 61 years old, and he couldn't keep up with her. She's a very athletic female. He waited for her to return, down the trail. He let her go on ahead. When she gets to the top, she comes back down. He's waiting. He's got a military-style knife. He demands her ATM card. Meredith was not about to be a victim. her instincts kicked in and she grabbed the knife from Hilton. He then